But the benefit I'm talking about is this. It is precisely the enclave nature of an economic activity that does not generate itself and link the rest of the economy with the problem. And this is the case of the primary commodity dependent economic structure that we have in Africa. We export everything, and we import everything, including coconut juice. So when the person in Burkina Faso, the agricultural sector, wants to produce something to improve their livelihood, there's no market. Even when she has tomato, the cheap tomato coming from UK and Italy to destroy her tomato farm. So if you want to transform this economy, you have to transform it in a way that you get the agricultural sector to talk to the manufacturing sector, to talk to the primary sector, and we can go into detail. It's precisely this situation which we're trying to transform the mining sector. Because the mining sector has been the worst of the enclave. It was an enclave during colonialism. After colonialism, we tried to create structure. Then the World Bank came and said this thing. When the World Bank came and said, let me read this because it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Don't just get it there. The World Bank said, the recovery of this was in 1992. The recovery of the mining sector in Africa will require a shift in government objectives towards a primary objective of maximizing tax revenues from mining over the long term, rather than pursuing economic or political objectives. The World Bank said that in 1992 was supported by the Canadian government, supported by the US government, supported by all the OECD countries to impose a mining regime which says you have to get the money and run, not develop. And today, that's what we have. Okay, so what is the transformation away from this primary commodity simple? The African mining vision has a simple example, and I wish I had time to go into it. The simplest fixing. This is what again, in 1980, when the African countries met, the Lagos Plan of Action, they described this problem. Listen to this, let's find out how familiar it is. They say we have a mining sector where there's lack of formation of natural resource endowment and large unexplored areas, lack of adequate capacity in terms of capital, skills, and technology for the development of these resources, a considerable dependence on foreign transnational cooperation for the development of a narrow range of natural resources selected by those corporations to satisfy the raw material needs of the industrial countries, inadequate share of the value added generated by the exploitation of the natural resources, non-integration of the raw materials to our economy, it goes on and on. That was in 1980. When the African Health Society got together therefore to have a Lagos Plan of Action. It went together with the AFSAP. You know what happened to Lagos Plan of Action and AFSAP? We went all the way to the United Nations General Assembly to argue that should be adopted. Again, the World Bank put an end to it with Canadian support, with US support, with Norwegian support. So what we are talking today is to solve this problem. How do we get a mining sector that, one, captures most of the revenue for the purpose of development? Two, ensures that the money is integrated with the rest of the economy. Three, that we pay as much attention, not simply to gold, to uranium, to the things that are important for the raw material industry in the north, but also to clay, to clinker, to things that are used for our own development. How do we ensure ultimately that the involvement of capital is something that is domestically driven, even with foreign support? Now, there are two ways in which the private sector can be relevant. Thank you. There are two ways in which the private sector can be relevant to this project. Two ways. The first is this. As I said, we have to capture much of the resources. We have to capture as much of the resources as possible and invest them wisely, economy-wide, for people to benefit. That's a public sector issue. Public sector issue. I mean, anybody who says that the private sector can be involved in capturing the raw materials and capture the rent and reinvesting it is really playing games. That is precisely why I think that this example that our friend gave this morning about iron, gold, or something in Burkina Faso, where the Canadian government gave $5 million for some gold mining company from Toronto to train people, is misguided. In fact, if I was a Canadian, I would just campaign for that money to be given to Plan directly. Give it to Plan. Plan has got much more experience about educating people and everything. What kind of experience that iron, gold, or that company has in training people for skills which are not related to mining. But even if they do that, right? Are they really telling us that the story that I've described to you about the concentration of labor in Burkina Faso by training 4,000 people between 18 and 20, 16 and 20 over the next 6 years will address this problem? You give them jobs to work where? We set up the economy. IM Gold has what? 2,000 jobs a year. How is it going to absorb them? In other words, what we are talking about there, when we are talking about capturing raw material and mining resources and use for development, we are talking about how the government, with a certain policy or structural transformation, can invest in agriculture, can create a position in which agricultural products can find more market, can find more relevance in the Burkina Faso economy, in the region, everywhere, so that they can have an expanded job creation. That is not something that you can say that should give $5 million to give to IM Gold and work a plan and achieve. It won't happen. In fact, I think that that company's chief executive was right when he said, what did he say? Very, very interesting. He said, look, the thing is that if you don't give them that money, very soon they go and ask for more money and then there will be a price hikes and they will eat more royalty demands. It will eat their profit. And the man's name, when I found it, I'll tell you. His name is Stewart, I think. That's what he says. Steve Letton. If you don't have doors or windows to get out to improve, then we are going to have problems at that mine. Right? Over the course of time, they are going to want more of a tick. And that will mean increased taxes and royalties. He's being honest. Basically, see that, give me the money so that I can do something to make sure that nobody can demand more taxes. That won't work. Even if it will work, won't solve the problem. But there's an alternative route. Let's explore that. Can the private sector be involved in the operations of the mining companies, from the exploration stage, from whatever, and then from downstream stage, in a way that we can say can increase capacity in the local economy? One of the demands of the African Mining Vision is what they call linkages, building linkages between mining operations and the local economy. Backward linkages, forward linkages, we won't go into detail because I can see the chairman trying to announce me already. But let me just make 2 points, Mr. Chairman, with your permission. Just 2. Look, if you look at the variety of linkages, there's the one which is called the backward linkage, where you are talking about how can you have a situation where the inputs that the mineral mining company needs can be sourced locally, local procurement. And in fact, in this kind of situation, there are some interesting things done. Newmont Ghana has done a few things using CSR. CSR opportunity to try and say that we are going to build enterprises to supply some things to us. There are some limits. I can come to the limits. But Barrick Gold, African Barrick in Tanzania and Banro in Congo DR have not been that successful. Why? Because, in a certain sense, that kind of procurement from domestic resources for the inputs of local money requires many more conditions than simply relying on that private sector. It requires, for instance, that if you are saying that a mining company should procure goods locally, and then you are telling the government that you must remove tariffs on imports of goods, it will just procure imported goods and bring it to the company. So it is contradictory. If the Canadian government says that remove tariffs on the NAMA, remove this, do this, bilateral trade liberalization, investment protection, all the things that the CDA talked about this morning, they are totally contradictory to the kind of linkage building in local procurement levels. But even the local procurement feedback thing is not enough, because really the future of transformation is the forward linkages, where you are using the products and outputs for the minerals to try and power the economy, to establish fair in that process. Or sideways linkages, where you develop technology from the mining area and take them to other area which is totally not related to mining. Can motor pumps or pumps that are used to pump water out of the mines be used, for instance, to support pumping water for irrigation for small farmers, for instance? Now that kind of thing requires public policy, industrial policy, and at the heart of it, the state, the developmental state. No state, no country in the world historically, whether it's Canada or the United States, has ever developed to where they are without a strong role of a developmental state. So let me conclude by saying, look, there are ways in which you can have private sector working, but not the kind of things when you give money to Iron Gold or Barrick Gold to do the country. In fact, what you can do to get a private sector to play a role is, for instance, take a situation, and when I was here some time ago, I went to Manitoba and I discovered that there's some interesting machine tool companies and things around there who are working in agriculture and things. Now, it's very interesting. And this I'm going to use the example that Major gave them. If, for instance, we can say small-scale producers in Ghana who are working in agriculture or who can improve their supplies to the mining sector can link up with machine tool industries in Manitoba to join up and build a capacity around the private sector with the support of the Ghanaian government and the Canadian government using this export promotion credit or whatever it does, not to give to the big companies to export, but to give to the small companies to build capacity across the board. That kind of agenda for upgrading and scaling the private sector from artisanal and small scale miners to medium to large, and if need be, through joint ventures by the African states with other foreigners and things like that, is the kind of private sector we can go. There's a private sector that's led by the developmental state and is based on transformation. Thank you.